Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're uncorking something truly intriguing, Petit Sirah. It's a grape that's, well, often overlooked, maybe misunderstood, but for those who know it, it's a powerful revelation.
Absolutely. A hidden gem, you could say.
Yeah. So our mission today is to really understand its unique story, its journey, and why it's such a treasure for anyone seeking those robust, characterful wines.
And it is a fascinating journey we've got lined up. We'll trace Petit Sirah's sort of mysterious origins,
Right?
pinpoint where it truly flourishes in vineyards around the world, delve into the intricate details of the vine itself,
Okay.
and uncover how winemakers manage or tame its intensity.
Tame the beast.
Exactly. Then we'll guide you through what to expect in your glass and, crucially, how to best enjoy it. This deep dive should offer insights often missed, a real shortcut to truly appreciating this remarkable grape.
All right, let's break this down then. What is Petit Sirah? Because let me tell you, it's absolutely not just a little Syrah.
Oh, definitely not.
For a long time, its origins were, well, a bit mysterious, weren't they? Almost a genetic enigma.
Indeed. Caused a lot of debate. The big revelation came in 1997, a really significant scientific breakthrough from Dr. Carole Meredith's team at UC Davis.
Ah, okay.
They confirmed genetically that Petit Sirah is a natural cross. One parent is Syrah, yes, but the other is this almost forgotten grape called Peloursin.
Peloursin. Never heard of it.
Right. It's an ancient variety from southeastern France, the Isère region specifically, and it's credited with giving Petit Sirah that really notable tannin structure and that deep, almost opaque color that you see in the wines.
So it started life in France then, around 1880, created by François Durif, hence the name Durif.
Precisely. He named it after himself. But its journey then took it elsewhere.
How did it migrate? And why the name change?
Well, it migrated to the New World, arriving in California around 1884, I believe.
Okay.
And there, because it has small berries and maybe looked a bit like Syrah to them, it was mistakenly, but you can understand why, called Petit Sirah.
Ah, the little Syrah misnomer.
Exactly. And that name just stuck in the U.S. Interestingly, when it got to Australia in 1908, it kept its original name Durif.
Right.
And it really thrived there, especially in warmer spots like Rutherglen and Riverina.
You know, its history in the States sounds like quite the roller coaster.
Definitely.
It had this early climb, especially post-Prohibition, right? Used in blends, often with Zin, for backbone.
Yes, exactly. It added body, color, longevity to Zinfandel blends, which were very popular.
Then it kind of fell out of favor.
It did. A significant decline. It got relegated to bulk wine production. And sadly, a lot of vineyards were even pulled out, replaced with other things.
Wow. So how did it make a comeback?
Its rediscovery, you could call it, really kicked off in the late 20th, early 21st century. A new generation of producers, particularly in the U.S. and Australia, saw the potential.
What changed?
They started adopting really meticulous vineyard management, focusing on low yields, that's crucial, careful pruning, canopy management.
Okay, controlling that vigor we talked about.
Precisely. And in the winery, they refined techniques. Things like prolonged maceration, using quality oak, controlling fermentation temperatures much more carefully.
So it wasn't just the grape, it was how they handled it.
Absolutely. That was the key insight. It allowed them to unlock its potential for high-quality varietal wines, showcasing that intense color, those firm tannins but ripe tannins, and the complex dark fruit and spice.
Incredible turnaround. And that really brings us neatly to terroir, doesn't it?
It does.
For a grape with such a strong personality, where does it really find its happy place?
Well, it has a very clear preference for hot and dry climates. Think long, sunny summers, low humidity.
Okay.
Those conditions are just optimal for ripening the sugars, softening those big tannins, and developing all the aromatic compounds.
Is it adaptable, though? Or fussy?
It's quite resilient, actually, but there are risks. If it's too cold, the tannins can stay really rustic, astringent, maybe you get some green notes. And if it's excessively hot, especially without good water management, you can end up with, high alcohol and wines that feel unbalanced.
Makes sense. And what about the ground itself? Does the soil type make a big difference?
Oh, a huge difference. It really influences the expression. Take clay soils, for instance.
Okay.
They hold water and nutrients, promote vigorous growth. If you manage that well, you get wines with intense color, Really prominent, firm tannins, full body, lots of dark fruit, spice, maybe some earthy notes.
And sandy soils.
Sandy soils are different. Great drainage. They warm up quickly, so maybe earlier ripening. Wines often have softer, maybe silkier tannins and perhaps more aromatic complexity. Red fruits, blue fruits, florals, even minerality.
Interesting.
And then you have gravelly or stony soils. They drain really well, reflect heat, which helps ripening. These can give you wines with pronounced structure, high concentration, mineral notes again alongside dark fruit, chocolate, tobacco, spice. Really complex profiles.
That paints such a clear picture. So if we were mapping out the main hotspots for Petit Sirah today, where would we look first?
Without a doubt, California. It's the epicenter.
Right.
Within California, Napa Valley produces these really potent Petit Sirahs, firm tannins, fantastic aging potential, concentrated dark fruit, dark chocolate, coffee, sweet spice. I think Stag's Leap Winery, a classic example.
Okay. And Ridge, they use it too, don't they?
Yes. Ridge famously uses it in blends like Lytton Springs, precisely for that structure and depth it brings.
What about other parts of California? Lodi, Paso Robles.
Yeah, Lodi offers something different, often more accessible, fruit-forward styles. Good structure still, but vibrant red and black fruit, soft spice. You've got producers like Brazen, Michael David Winery doing great things there. And Paso Robles, known for intense wines, often with velvety tannins despite the power, ripe black fruit, licorice, black pepper, and frequently those nice oak notes, tobacco, leather, vanilla. J-Lore is a key player there.
And outside the U.S., Australia you mentioned as Durif.
That's right. In Australia, Riverland is a big region, lots of volume, accessible fruity wines, often for blends. But if you want serious Durif, look to places like Barossa Valley. Intense, concentrated wines, dark fruit, chocolate, spice, robust tannins built for aging. Atabolk is a standout, one of the oldest and most respected names with Durif.
Are there other places experimenting with it?
Definitely seeing promising developments elsewhere. Israel is producing some really interesting concentrated, structured wines with dark fruit and spice, good potential for aging. Chile's making some robust, fruity versions, and even Brazil in certain hot, dry microclimates is showing potential for good color and structure.
So it seems quite adaptable, but it clearly has its demands. What does that ultimately mean for the wine we end up drinking?
It means that while, yes, it's adaptable, quality absolutely hinges on that meticulous vineyard management and finding the right site.
Got it.
You need enough heat, controlled water, balanced vine vigor, the right soil, good sun exposure, ventilation. When all that lines up, Petit Sirah delivers wines of really remarkable depth, intensity, complexity, powerful tannins, and truly exceptional aging potential. I mean, some can go for decades. Yeah. The insight here is, for all its toughness, Petit Sirah makes you work for it in the vineyard. But the rewards, they can be immense.
Okay, let's zoom in even closer right on the vine itself. What makes Petit Sirah look unique, ampelographically speaking?
Good question. Looking at the vine, the leaves are pretty robust, medium to large, 5 distinct lobes, deep sinuses, kind of glossy dark green on top. But the clusters are really key. They're compact, medium to small, but very dense, packed tightly together.
And that density, that's good for concentration, but bad for...
Exactly, bad for disease pressure. That compactness creates a humid little microclimate inside the bunch, making it inherently susceptible to fungal things like mildew, powdery mildew, and especially botrytis bunch rot.
Ah, okay, a double-edged sword. What about the berries themselves?
The berries are the stars, really. Small, spherical, dark blue, almost black, and crucially, they have notably thick, robust skins.
Like skins mean.
Lots of anthocyanins for that deep color, and lots of tannins. That high skin-to-pulp ratio is precisely why you get such deep color, high tannin content, and full-bodied wines from Petit Sirah.
It sounds like a naturally vigorous plant, then. You mentioned controlling that earlier. Does that mean if you just let it grow, it wouldn't be very good?
That's a great point. Yes, if left unchecked, its natural vigor could easily lead to, well, dilute, less interesting wines. So managing that power is absolutely paramount.
How do growers typically do that?
Several key things. Pruning is critical. Short pruning, like spur pruning, helps control the vigor and limit the number of clusters, forcing the vine to focus its energy on fewer, higher quality grapes.
Makes sense.
Training systems are important too. Using systems like cordon or guyot helps spread out the canopy, ensuring good air circulation and sun exposure for the clusters. That's vital for ripening and, as we said, disease prevention.
And yield control. You mentioned green harvesting.
Absolutely crucial. Low yields are paramount for quality Petit Sirah. Green harvesting, which means literally going through and cutting off excess bunches early in the season, is often necessary to prevent dilution and make sure the remaining grapes get concentrated sugars, color, and tannins.
Wow, sounds labor-intensive.
It can be. And finally, water management. It's drought tolerant, which is a plus.
Right.
But actually, a little bit of controlled water stress, especially around veraison when the grapes start to ripen and change color, can be beneficial. It encourages the vine to produce smaller, more concentrated berries, better phenolics, sugars, acidity. But you have to be careful not to stress it too much.
It sounds like a balancing act. So despite its resilience, it clearly throws up some unique challenges for growers.
It absolutely does. Those viticultural challenges are significant. Fungal diseases are top of the list because of those compact clusters.
Right, the humidity trap.
Exactly. So meticulous canopy management, pruning, leaf removal, or disfola, as it's sometimes called, plus yield control, and just constant vigilance are key. Late maturation is another big one. Petit Sirah ripens late in the season.
Which
means if you harvest too early, you get those undesirable green tannins, hard astringent plus higher acidity and just less flavor complexity. And in regions that get autumn rains, there's the risk of the fruit getting diluted or rotting on the vine before it's fully ripe.
So hitting that perfect ripeness window is tricky.
Very tricky. It requires careful site selection. You need places with good sun, well-drained soils, a long growing season, plus that precise irrigation management and constant monitoring. Growers are often out there tasting the berries, checking seed color, not just looking at sugar numbers to nail that phenolic ripeness.
Okay, so the vineyard work delivers this intense, potentially challenging raw material, but then it goes to the cellar. I imagine that's where the winemakers really start to shape it, to tame that intensity you mentioned.
Absolutely. The cellar is where the sculpting happens, and it starts with the harvest decision. As we just discussed, timing is critical, and the focus is squarely on phenolic ripeness.
Not just sugar ripeness.
Exactly. Mature tannins and color compounds in the skins and seeds are the goal. Winemakers use lab analysis, sure, but tasting the berries in the vineyard is crucial. Some even do polyphenol analysis. And often, manual harvesting is preferred, especially with those dense clusters, to be gentle and select only the best fruit.
What happens right after harvest?
Usually, destemming is essential to avoid those green stemmy tannins. Gentle crushing follows. Then, many winemakers employ a cold soak macération of frio.
Cold soak, what does that do?
You hold the crushed grapes at low temperatures, say below 10 Celsius, for several days before fermentation starts. It allows for a slow, gentle extraction of color and aromas from the skins, but without pulling out the harsher tannins too early. It can lead to a more refined structure in the final wine. And rigorous sorting, selecting only healthy, perfectly ripe berries, is vital.
Okay, then fermentation kicks off. What are the key decisions there?
Control is key. Usually fermentation happens in temperature-controlled tanks, stainless steel, or maybe concrete. Yeast selection matters. Some use native yeasts, others selected strains. And temperature is a big lever.
Warmer versus cooler.
Right. Warmer ferments, say 28-32 Celsius, tend to extract more color and tannin, maybe for wines designed for longer aging. Moderate temperatures, maybe 24-28 Celsius, help preserve more of the primary fruit and floral notes, perhaps for more accessible styles.
And after the sugar is gone, is it pressed right away?
Not usually with Petit Sirah. Post-fermentation maceration is often crucial. The wine stays in contact with the skins for days, sometimes weeks, even after fermentation is complete.
Why do that?
It maximizes color extraction, yes, but more importantly, it allows the tannins to start polymerizing, linking up, which helps soften them, making them feel more integrated and velvety in the mouth over time. Managing the cap of skins during fermentation and maceration using techniques like pumping over remontagens or rack and return, délestage, is also key for even extraction.
Then there's malolactic fermentation, I assume.
Almost always, yes. That secondary fermentation converts the sharper malic acid to softer lactic acid. It softens the wine's acidity and adds complexity, a rounder mouthfeel.
And finally, aging. Oak seems important for a grape like this.
Essential, really, given its structure. The type of oak makes a big difference. American oak typically gives more overt notes, vanilla, coconut, caramel, sweet spice, and adds a robust feel.
Right.
French oak tends to be subtler, finer spices. Cedar, tobacco, cocoa, maybe toasted coffee notes, and contributes finer tannins. The toast level of the barrelite, medium, heavy, adds another layer of complexity and flavor modulation.
How long does it usually stay in barrel?
Generally 12 to 24 months, sometimes longer. This time in barrel allows for slow microoxygenation through the wood, which is critical for softening those tannins and integrating all the flavors, the fruit, the spice, the oak itself. Oak isn't just flavoring here, it's structurally vital for sculpting Petit Sirah.
So with all those decisions, cold soak, ferment temp, oak type, time, what are the main styles or personalities we end up seeing in the bottle?
Good question. You definitely see pure varietal Petit Sirah. These are typically the most intense expressions. That deep, almost black color, full, robust body, firm but ideally ripe tannins, concentrated dark fruit, blackberry, cassie, plum, often that signature black pepper, maybe licorice, smoky, earthy notes. Those are the ones with that serious aging potential we mentioned.
And blends. You mentioned Zinfandel earlier.
Yes, blends are very important too. Petit Sirah is a fantastic blending partner. It adds color, structure, tannin, and longevity. The classic California blend with Zinfandel adds backbone to Zin's jammy fruit. Blending with Syrah is a natural fit, creating really complex, layered wines. You also see it used with Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and others to add depth or structure. Ultimately, the winemaker, the entomologist, is like a maestro, right? Balancing all these technical choices to express the grape's unique character, which is powerful, complex, and ideally transform it into something elegant and memorable.
Okay, let's pivot to the glass itself then. We've talked about how it's made. What can you expect when you actually pour and taste Petit Sirah?
Well, prepare for intensity. Aromatically, you'll typically get dominant dark fruits, blackberry, plum, blueberry, sometimes like a fruit compote or jam, and almost always that characteristic black pepper note. With some age or oak influence, you start getting more complex tertiary notes. Tobacco, dark chocolate, coffee, licorice, maybe some leather or earthy tones, occasionally, especially when young. A hint of violet, a floral touch.
And on the palate?
The flavors usually echo the nose, concentrated fruit, spice. There's typically good acidity, which is important to balance the wine's inherent robustness and richness.
What about the look and feel?
Visually, it's striking. Intense, deep purple, often nearly black. Really tells you about the concentration of anthocyanins. And in the mouth, it's undeniably full-bodied. You feel the density, the weight. It announces itself.
And this next part, I think, is where it gets really interesting for a lot of people, the aging potential.
Oh, absolutely. This is one of Petit Sirah's superpowers. High-quality examples, especially from those low-yield vineyards with careful tannin management in the winery, possess remarkable longevity.
How long are we talking?
Easily a decade, often much more. 20, 30 years isn't out of the question for the best examples. They evolve beautifully.
How do they change over that time?
Those initially firm tannins, they polymerize, linking together to form longer chains. This makes them feel softer, rounder, much more velvety on the palate. The primary fruit aromas gradually recede, making way for those complex tertiary notes we talked about, dried fruits like fig or prune, aged tobacco, leather, baking spices like cinnamon and clove, maybe damp earth, cedar. It becomes incredibly nuanced.
Wow.
Its naturally high acidity and robust tannin structure act like built-in preservatives, allowing for this slow, graceful evolution. It's really something to experience in older Petit Sirah.
So for our listeners wanting to try this, any practical tips for getting the best experience? It sounds like maybe rushing it isn't the best idea.
Definitely rewards a little patience. I'd strongly recommend decanting, especially for younger wines. Give it a good hour, maybe even 2.
Why decant?
It helps soften those tannins by exposing the wine to oxygen, and it really allows the aromas to open up and express themselves. It's also useful for older wines, just to separate out any sediment that might have formed.
Okay, decanting. What about temperature?
Serving temperature is important. Aim for somewhere between 16 and 18 degrees Celsius. That's about 61 to 64 Fahrenheit. Too cold, and the tannins can feel harsh. Too warm, and the alcohol becomes more noticeable.
Glassware. Does it matter?
A large, wide, bold red wine glass is ideal. It gives the wine plenty of surface area for aeration, helps concentrate those complex aromas towards your nose.
Good tip.
And yes, patience in the glass too, especially with a potentially age-worthy bottle. Swirl it, let it evolve a bit as you drink it. You might be surprised how it changes over 15-30 minutes.
Knowing all this, the intensity, the structure, the flavors, what does it mean for pairing with food? It sounds like it needs substantial partners at the dinner table.
It really does. It's an exceptional culinary partner, but for the right dishes. The key is its structure. Those firm tannins are brilliant at cutting through fat and protein.
Cleanses the palate, right.
Exactly. Cleanses the palate, enhances the food.
Right.
The good acidity helps balance richness, adds freshness. But yeah, the food needs enough structure and flavor intensity to stand up to the wine. You don't want the wine to overpower the dish.
So what are some classic pairings?
Grilled red meats are a go-to. Think juicy steaks, picanha, T-bone, ribeye, especially with some smoky char from the grill. Those flavors mesh perfectly with the tannins and dark fruit. Robust stews are another winner. Hearty, slow-cooked dishes like boeuf bourguignon, lamb stew, maybe even a rich short rib dish. The depth of the wine complements the depth of the food.
What about something like Brazilian BBQ?
Oh, perfect. Those fatty cuts of meat, the smokiness from the churrasco. It's a wonderful match for Petit Sirah's dark fruit and structure.
Are there bolder pairings that work? Maybe spicier food?
Absolutely. Dishes with bold spices can work surprisingly well. Think certain Indian or Moroccan tagines, maybe even some complex Mexican mole dishes. The spice in the food can echo the peppery notes often found in the wine. Smoked foods, too. Smoked plump ribs with a tangy BBQ sauce, or even intense smoked cheeses, smoked Gouda, maybe, can bridge really nicely with the wine's earthy and tobacco undertones.
Can you give some specific examples based on the wine style, like young versus old?
Sure. For a younger, fruitier Petit Sirah, think gourmet burgers piled high with cheese and bacon, maybe a spicy pepperoni or calabrese pizza, or grilled meat skewers with roasted vegetables.
Right.
For an older, more complex aged Petit Sirah, you might step it up. Ossobuco with a rich saffron risotto, roasted duck with a red fruit reduction sauce, or strong, hard-aged cheeses like Parmigiano Reggiano or an old Gouda.
And those blends, like with Zinfandel.
Those often pair well with classic American comfort food, BBQ ribs, chili con carne, maybe roasted lamb with lots of herbs, things with robust flavors, but maybe not quite as intensely structured as a pure young Petit Sirah requires.
It's really clear Petit Sirah has carved out its own identity, moving way beyond just being a blending grape. How does it stand now in the global market, and what's its future look like?
Yeah, it's definitely overcome that historical challenge of being seen mainly as just a blending component. It now has this really loyal and I think expanding niche following.
Who's drinking it?
Discerning consumers, mostly. People looking for intensity, depth, complexity, and that remarkable longevity, something maybe a bit different from the mainstream varieties. It often carries this muscular profile image, which appeals to those wanting a wine for hearty meals or for cellaring.
Any producers we should look out for again? Key names.
Well, in California, names like Turley Wine Cellars are huge for Petit Sirah enthusiasts. Stag's Leap Winery, of course.
Yeah.
Ridge Vineyards, as we mentioned. Even producers like Brazen and Lodi offer great value. In Australia, Taubilk is iconic for Durif. De Bertoli Wines also does excellent work.
Does it still face challenges in the market?
Oh, sure. It still lacks the widespread name recognition of, say, Cabernet or Merlot. That perception as just a blender lingers in some circles. And frankly, its intense tannin structure can be intimidating for newcomers if they try a young, powerful example without the right context or food.
So education is key.
Absolutely. Consumer education, targeted tastings, letting people experience well-made examples, perhaps paired with food, that's how you overcome those hurdles.
What about the future, though? Is it promising?
I think it's very promising for a few key reasons. First, consumer trends. There's a growing appetite for wines with real character, authenticity, unique stories, and flavor profiles. Petit Sirah delivers that in spades.
Right.
Second, sustainability and climate resilience. Its natural robustness, its tolerance for heat and dry conditions, that makes it a really strategic grape for vineyards grappling with climate change. It often needs less irrigation, can be more resilient. That resonates with consumers looking for environmentally responsible choices.
That's a really important point.
It is. And third, enconological innovation. Winemakers aren't standing still. They're constantly exploring ways to refine Petit Sirah, experimenting with things like aging in amphorae for different texture, using whole clusters during fermentation for added spice and complexity, playing with different oak types and toast levels to enhance elegance. They're finding new ways to express its potential.
What an incredible journey we've taken, really getting under the skin of Petit Sirah. This deep dive has absolutely revealed a grape of surprising depth, a truly fascinating history, and just immense potential. It's so much more than just a little Syrah.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? This raises an important question. If Petit Sirah is so resilient, so tough, and yet capable of producing these incredibly powerful, complex, long-lived wines, might it not be one of the unsung heroes that helps define the future of wine, especially in a changing climate? offering both that intensity people crave and a unique expression of place.
A really compelling thought to end on. So we absolutely encourage you, our listeners, to seek out Petit Sirah. Explore the different styles from California, Australia, maybe elsewhere. Experience this remarkable grape for yourselves. Keep exploring, keep tasting, and continue your own deep dive into the incredible world of wine.